What if the spaces we inhabit aren't just physical structures, but living, breathing reflections of who we are? What if architecture could heal us, hold us, and help us evolve? Today, I'm joined by Matthew Noffke, architect, energy worker, and visionary behind a new kind of design, one that listens to the hum of a building, honors the soul of a space, and bridges the gap between structure and spirit. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited about this conversation. I have no idea where it's going to go, but there's so many people that I've spoken to, and we're all talking about health and energetics and spirituality, but never in relation to architecture. So I'm super excited about this conversation. I can't welcome you enough onto the
Okay.
podcast.
Thanks, Nadine. Yeah,
Do
appreciate you.
you want to give us a very brief intro of your business, who you are, what you do on a top level, and then we'll get into the detail.
Yeah, sure. I'm an architect. So I'm registered in Australia. Uh, as in my bio, it kind of took me 10 years to register as an architect. But I guess I found myself becoming increasingly how to say it, like concerned that the majority of our architecture and built space, in Australia and around the world is largely developed through purely aesthetics and what I find and what I'm learning to be quite a meaningless and soulless design process. So I found myself after I finished my degree, I had a transference healing. So that took me on for the last 10 years, again, just a really, amazing journey on sort of exploring, myself. And I'm just really trying to apply what I've learned energetically about our light body system and the energetic system of the wider universe and bringing that into my work. So I'm just sort of we've just finished 5 levels of the mystery school last year, and I feel like I'm really ready to bring some of that knowledge and experience into my profession. Yeah.
Amazing. You've answered probably my first three questions. So do you feel that architecture was always a calling for you, or like was it just kind of like a job, or like how did you get into it?
Well, I was always interested and just loved building things from when I was really quite young.
Okay.
I had like a really big shed at home, and just had lots of machinery and lots of tools, and I'd just be always making furniture and things, and it just sort of grew from
Yeah.
that. And I just really loved design, and I was always into geometry and like spiritual concepts in a way, but even like down to my belief system. Like I knew I believed in something, but it took quite a while for me to sort of figure that out. And again, it was only through Alexis teaches through Transference Healing that I really found a lot of the answers to like so many questions I had that were both related to my work as an architect, and then also just just being a person and being on this earth, all the questions
Mm.
spiritually that sort of like raises. So yeah.
So do you reckon it was it a bit of a chicken and the egg sort of thing? Did you like what came first? Was it like I don't know the right word, disappointment with, you were saying that kind of architecture in that first 10 years was a bit soulless, let's say. Buildings for the sake of buildings, without really consideration of the power, I guess, that a building can have or structure can have. And So that's one side of it, that you sort of were coming to that realization, but also you found transference healing. Was it the transference healing that kind of made the penny drop? This is what I need to do, or
Yeah, yeah,
like
no, it was, yeah,
what was going
absolutely.
on?
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, it's quite a like, it's just like a difficult modality, but it's like very, it's got so much, in it. It's just some of the things that Alexis has written. It's just, a few sentences you could expand into an entire book. It's just like, it relates to, you know, it's just, I can honestly say that, if you have a question about anything to do with yourself or, the wider universe, you can find it in what she's been teaching. Because, that's what I find so powerful in, even what, I'm trying to do, like channeling information. I just find that, you know, so much has been lost when we, look back at, previous golden age civilizations that have flourished on this earth. It's like, what they knew and how they were connected, to themselves, and how they, connected to their multidimensional selves. We just, have really lost that for quite a long period of time. And it's only through, someone who can connect to the Akashic records and, connect with, what has been and what is to come, is where, you can really only find just like a really specific truth, which, requires trust, um, which a lot of people also have a hard time just trusting, in, not only themselves, but someone who has, sort of, capabilities and gifts that are sort of beyond what they're capable of. I think we all, just become overly comfortable with how we are, and we apply that to every other person and that's around us, when, we're all at different stages of evolution. We all have different gifts and talents, and it's like, until you really start appreciating that diversity and, from the people around you, it's like it just opens, so like, just this huge doorway of, knowledge that before I started Transference Healing, I just had, I knew, like, within myself, that there was something more, but it's not until you sort of walk through that doorway, it's just like, yeah, just, yeah, amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, wow. So, for the listeners out there, you're referencing transference healing a lot, and for anyone who's interested in it, I did a series of podcasts with Laverne Proctor last year, that was really working on distilling some of the transference healing into sort of simple everyday practices that we could kind of integrate into our lives. That series is called Guide to Universal Living. For anyone who is listening and is interested in finding out a little bit more, that could be a good starting point. Okay, let me think. So I wonder, before we go any deeper, yeah, there was like questions that popped up all over the place then in my head. Before we go any deeper, can you give us, okay, some examples of the work that you've already done and how that kind of starts to bring energy into architecture, and maybe even some history or historical examples of where that has happened in previous eras?
Yeah. So maybe we'll start at Egypt. So, I love Egypt. I know, we've got South America, and there's other sort of like, places on the earth where, there have also been, really strong, energetic architecture in, ancient civilizations. But, for me, I find Egypt's, quite easily accessible from a knowledge point of view. It's just very well studied. And, I've been to Egypt, and I just, think I've had quite a few past lives there. So it's quite easy to just tap into that technology. So, like, just I feel that, I wrote a few things down. So it's like just for us to go on a bit of an architecture journey, like we have to sort of start off with, what we believe. So
Mm,
I just think, architecture, and especially energetic architecture is a reflection of, our internal consciousness and, the consciousness of humanity. So, I think we have to, first of all, sort of realize that modern day society has lost a lot of that spiritual connection with and understanding of, our light body. And, um, like I like to start the conversation with, just reincarnation. If you can't sort of be open to reincarnation and believe that, we have, a higher energetic eternal part of self that, doesn't just cease to exist, after we move on from this reality, then, I think you'd really struggle to um, be open to, anything energetic really, because it's like as soon as you sort of, start asking questions about reincarnation, it just again opens this huge doorway to, what does that mean if I have an eternal part of self and a higher self and, these different aspects of self. So if we sort of can sort of create a base um, from our, the perspective of our spirituality and what we believe in, and architecture is a reflection of that belief. It's like, we start to get into light body technology. So it's like our light body, you might have spoken to Laverne potentially about the light body, and in Transference Healing, we do a lot of work with the light body. It's like, basically like this very complex energetic system that allows and, just basically creates a bridge between your lower earthly incarnated self and your higher self. So it's like basically, this body of light that has this incredible amount of technology. And I believe these ancient civilizations knew about, their light body and, really
mm,
worked spiritually with their light body and worked to clear, purification rituals and, these um, the architecture was so energetically attuned that it was, their spirituality, was basically their how they lived, and their architecture was a reflection of how they lived. And it was like basically, all these systems really, you know, moving and complementing each other, where it's like just they basically had a totally different existence and were living a different existence to what we sort of are now. We're so detached from, you know, most things that are spiritual. It's like I just feel like we need to first repair that sort of bridge between our lower self and our light body and our higher self, and then that then reflects through the architecture. And then like what I'm starting to kind of really focus on is then how does um, the architecture then basically complement our ability to experience interdimensional realities through our multidimensional self. So, through our, because of our light body, it's like, I forget how, like what the percentage is of exactly what we can see and perceive in the,
mm.
known, it's like such a small, minute amount that it's like, it's just like crazy to me now how people just don't realize that there's so much more to like who we are and what we can experience. So um, it's just, through what I've sort of been introduced to energetically, and, Laverne might have as well mentioned like the Merkaba, like,
Mm.
that part of your light body and being able to have interdimensional experiences. And, architecture sort of like complementing our ability to, interact interdimensionally and, on different planes. And, there's just crazy amount of different say realities out there available to us. We just have to first, like I said, repair that bridge and then like clear within ourselves and be open to it. And that's, just being open to, a lot of these things that might seem to some people a little bit, make them uncomfortable. But it's, once you sort of clear through that you know, just it becomes more comfortable. It's just like I can guarantee you that it does become your reality.
Mm.
It is like your multidimensional selves and your ability to um, connect with the universe in that way. So I get like if we go back to like Egypt and these structures, like the Great Pyramid of Giza. I've done a few reels on basically that being a tool of prophecy, and then the way that it connects with different star systems, and then allows you Merkaba to like just basically expands your ability of your Merkaba to reach to different interdimensional realities and sort of interact with them. It's like that. That's just basically what I'm trying to say is our reality is limiting us from really using this type of architecture um, at the moment. And I think the world's moving, and with moving into our next golden age, I believe, as um, you know as a collective. And I think people be really wanting to engage in this type of experience, because I know through your the guests that you have regularly on your podcast, I think like people are really starting to awaken to who we truly are, and we like feel like there's a lot more out there than what we've necessarily been taught or brought up to believe. So some examples maybe just, a lot of my work at the moment is still quite conceptual. So I just find like I tried to start sort of this probably like 6 years ago. But it's only like honestly now, since I've done all 5 mystery schools, that I'd fully I have a much deeper understanding of, what I've been talking about. So maybe not, it wasn't the right time back then, but I feel like now it's like, it's really ready to move forward, with incorporating this into my work. And, I've built a copper pyramid for Alexis that she uses in the mystery schools, and like, using some of the concepts that I've been talking about. And so that's something that I've designed and built, and that took quite a few years to prepare that for the Garden of Eden there, that's basically where I'm at the moment. And
Cool.
yeah.
Wow, it's pretty full on stuff, isn't it? I
Yeah.
wonder when you just mentioned the copper pyramid that you built. Was that something that is like an actual? Is it like a just a framework, or is it an actual like building that you can enter into? Like,
It's just a frame. So yeah,
okay,
it's the using geometry of. I mean, I've done another reel sort of specifically on that as well, just with some of
okay,
the layering that's in there. But it's just basically like um, maybe we'll get into. I know you asked before potentially about numerology and geometry. So I just find that like, because I've had experience with both, sort of more standard architecture where it's not built and designed from geometry. And then, I have, what I'm really passionate about and what I love doing, which is, geometric architecture. Um, just when you're working with geometry and geometry is built from number, and, numbers energy and words are energy. It's just, it's like unbelievable how energetically related just everything is when you start working with geometry. It's like even when I was doing the pyramid, it's like, you draw a circle, and then you might draw a triangle, or you do a square. And if it's all, um, you know, geometrically drawn as opposed to just placing them, and the numbers aren't correct using like the sacred canon of number, which I've done a reel on as well. It's just basically you get all these just occurrences that you don't get without using it. It's like, just say I'll just 1080 is quite an important number because it's the a radius of the moon. It's like if you're sort of working with geometry and you put that number into the circle, you'll end up with like 1746 in another part of the building, and it's like totally unrelated to the thing that you just drew. It's like just when you divide, you divide something in half and it will equal like a really beautiful number as well. It's like just everything just seems to align. Whereas if, I like to sort of explain it like, you have chaos and you have perfection. It's like, it's basically, uh, when you're not working with geometry, it's chaos and nothing aligns, and it's, to me, like energetically like immature. Whereas when you're working with geometry, it's just so unbelievably satisfying because just things will happen and you didn't expect them to. So yeah. Yeah, getting back to the pyramid, sorry, I might digress there a bit, but
Yeah, that's all right.
so yeah, that had it was basically designed in the same proportion as the Great Pyramid of Giza with the same angles aside, because that was actually, as much as we struggle with giving ancient civilizations credit with knowing the things that we know, they can guarantee you they knew the diameter of the moon, they knew the diameter of the sun, they knew, all these, you know, planetary bodies that are so far away that you just wonder how could they ever know the size and how they're rotated, and it's just like they definitely did, because you can read it in all the architectural buildings that they built. So yeah, that's sort of, yeah.
Cool. So that structure that you have built so far, is that kind of the direction you're going in, or are you like, I'm curious, like, are you looking at well, I think of pyramids, and with those ancient civilizations as kind of places of worship, connecting in with other dimensions. So is that like the future of? Is it the future of like places of worship in inverted commas? Or are you looking at homes, workspaces, everything? Or do you have a
Well,
passion for those kind of like structures like you've built for Alexis?
not anything. I just think that like everything that if we're putting the energy into building something, I just really think that it should be of higher consciousness, and it should be reflecting where humanity's going, and what we're actually attaining or trying to attain within ourselves. It's like, yeah, so just if it's just someone's house, I believe it should be, geometrically designed and bring an energy to it. If it's, and especially if, you're designing or building some kind of spiritual, place of worship, or needing to, any modality or any kind of, practice that's energetically based. I just think it definitely should have, it's just, there's like so much available through geometry and some of the techniques that I've been explaining that can just really, enhance, what just so many things that we're trying to reach for. And yeah, I just think it applies to basically anything built or anything even energetic on our planet.
Yeah. Can
Yeah.
you speak a little bit more to that? Just that idea, like, just give us that comparison of like the traditional architecture way and like I think you mentioned in your website sort of the energetics of the creativity process and how that can actually pass on into the structure. Can you talk a little bit more to that?
So just I guess, like I have clients that I design, high-end, residential buildings for, and and just speaking with my colleagues in, my profession, I do naturally. It's just, everything today is just built off fashion. The latest magazine, and then it's just like this revolving door of just basically, something's in fashion, you design to what's in fashion with your reference material, and then it becomes out of fashion, and then you have to renovate, and then it's just, I think, quite a like not a good cycle, for us to be in, just on a basic level for like the material use and having, just churning out, like just materials and, and drain on the Earth's resources for absolutely no reason. So it's like that is, just a large proportion of architecture does get designed that way. And they're like beautiful structures in themselves. I want to say, would not go, they're beautiful in their own way, but I just find that they're so energetically imbalanced and not just totally, they're just so unbelievably different to what I can see our architecture developing into, where it's just like instead of, preparing plans and any kind of built form based on, simply aesthetics, it should be all based on architecture. I mean, on the energetic
Energetics.
aspect, yeah, of the architecture. And I mean, that's what you read in some of the books on Egypt is, but it's a lot of, all these temples were basically like, they specifically say that everything that was inserted into these temples for them to be energetically pure and, hum the way that they need to, and, perform the function that they were designed for. It's like just anything that was introduced based on aesthetics just detracted from the energetic capability of the building. So I just think, yeah, it's just,
It kind of makes sense. Like if you think of someone, I guess, and this is the case for many people, is they're going through the rat race, and that might be an architect, for example, who's going through the motions of doing all of the things, and like, they have all of, we have all of the everyday life experiences. We're stressed, we're not sleeping enough. It's just like go, 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 go. The rat race, which my husband and I were in. So I totally get how that can happen, but like how energetically, if someone is in that situation and they're building or designing, the energy that they're putting into it, that emotion, like, could be quite murky. And so, yeah, that kind of makes sense that, like, if you're, that when you're creating something, having more clarity around that kind of your spiritual nature, your light body. Sorry if I'm kind of using some words interchangeably in the wrong way. Yeah, it makes sense that the creation, what comes out of it, would be of a higher vibration, a higher frequency. Okay, questions. If you had a client, or you may have had a client that, and you're building something for them, how important is it for you? Well, I suppose they know they come to you for a certain reason. I've already answered that question for myself. But do you kind of get their vibes and like channel frequency, channel ideas from them? Is it from the land that they chose? From, like, I'm asking too many questions. I told you that would happen, didn't I? I warned you. I think you get my general
yeah, no,
idea.
just
I'm waffling.
there's just so much. It's like I mentioned before about the light body. It's like so incredibly complex, and there's just like so much to it. It's the same with, I like to put it. How should I put it? Just like you're building to draw in these high frequencies. It draws in a lot of those mysteries and the light technology behind both our light body and our energetic selves and the wider universe. So there's just an almost, there's so many ways that you can incorporate energy into the building. It's like you're never going to fit it all in there. But for me, I find that, if the building has a specific purpose, that's a good start. But then
Okay.
also, our uniqueness as individuals. I find that, I find most people coming to me, they like most often quite open energetically and spiritually. They just might not fully understand exactly, how you know, our energetic experience on Earth, can relate to a building. It's just like I find myself like putting these concepts together for people, and it basically manifests into, you know, just an infinite number of ways again. But yeah, it's just I think, the majority of humanity really um, like struggle, I think, to there's just so much information out there, I guess. Like again, just will bring it back to transference healing. It's just like for me, that was the one thing that was, like it put it together in a way that I could really understand it. And that's like why I think I can do what I'm doing, because, I didn't have to spend 40 years reading, like thousands of books, like,
Yeah. You're like,
to filter through what was relevant. Because I started doing that. I was just buying books here, there, and everywhere. And then it's just like, a lot of same for other, the technology and the knowledge. It's just not only been lost over time, but, it's quite, um, fragmented. And, you'll find, one little piece of gold in one book, and then you'll have to read another book to find. And it's just like it's just so thinly spread
yeah.
in our knowledge that yeah, just putting it together is actually quite difficult into something that's comprehensible within ourselves. So yeah.
Mm. I love the idea of having a house built uh, with all of this in mind. What are some of the things that you would consider if you were going from scratch? Would it be, and yeah, I won't. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. I'm, I'm not going to do one of my long questions with more questions.
So maybe we'll start with like a site. So,
Mm,
you know, I'm sure you've read about like ley lines or dragon
mm.
energy lines around the earth.
I'm
It's
from
like,
Glastonbury.
yeah, okay, well then, yeah. So yeah, it's work, it's basically like working with the energetic
Mm,
aspects of the earth that you could start with, or then also, as I mentioned before, like gematria. So that's being able to turn, words, which are energy and power. You can turn a word into a number, into a proportion. So it's like a lot of being from Glastonbury, a lot of the sites around there were basically designed with gematria and certain
okay.
phrases through their proportions. So it's like you can basically take a measurement of an ancient structure, and then it will have a measurement and proportion, and then there's these tables available. You can even get them online that basically certain numbers equal values to our language or Hebrew, or and then you can go back down to turn a phrase into an area. So
Wow, that's so cool.
um, yeah, yeah. So yeah, we've got that. We've got the pyramids and a lot of other like Stonehenge, and like aligning to star systems that
Mm,
Transference Healing, we work with 5 star systems, and 5 realities. They would very often incorporated into these ancient structures. You've got like materiality, so different materials, connect with different, elements, earth, fire, um, water, just, yeah. So you've got like the materiality aspect, and then, energetically as well. Like, we chose to use copper for the pyramid when I built it, because it doesn't distort the Earth's magnetic field, and it's a really good conductor of electricity. So it's like once you start getting into immateriality too, that sort of enhances the aspects of the architecture. Um, I just forms and proportions. So we've got like the platonic solids, and even a sphere. It's like you might look at a sphere, and I've done a reel about spheres
Mm,
as well, just a short one. But it's like, if you look at spheres, yeah, and black holes, often take the form of this sphere, and you look at time and how time isn't linear, and that gets back to our reincarnation, and we're not just living a linear um, experience through time. It's like more to do with spheres and circular,
okay.
as to say, like about sphere consciousness. And it's just like I was explaining to someone the other day about hieroglyphs, and like walking into a temple. So it's like your experience within a temple, or a energetic, attuned piece of architecture. It will just, it really depends on your consciousness. So if you basically don't believe in reincarnation or anything energetic, and you just believe you're an animal, not, like a lot of people unfortunately do. It's like you'll only have, you might feel something, but you'll have an experience related to your consciousness. But it's like, as you start to like, that's why I'm really trying to sort of like impress upon people that it's, your consciousness really does create your reality. So it's like,
Mm,
if you're always trying to expand your consciousness and be open to new things, and be open to, like the world might not be exactly the way that you perceive it is now. And if you're just continually growing, these spaces will grow with you, because they're so attuned to higher, universal frequencies, and how your light body works. It will just keep helping you, push you to grow further and further, through those aspects of yourself. So it's just, yeah, these temples just basically will be experienced by different people in, vastly different ways, but it's just really depends on the person. Yeah.
yeah, amazing. So many things to take into consideration.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like
One man
sorry.
taking on this role
Yeah.
to change the energetic footprint.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you've kind of talked about how architecture can be a tool for spiritual evolution and awakening. If we were living in more high vibe environments, if our homes were designed in some of the ways that you had mentioned, what would we expect to experience?
Um, yeah, well, so may I start off with like how, if like we had multiple energetic structures on the earth. So it's
Mm,
like, instead of having predominantly non-energetic structures, I think that constrains humanity and our earth to some degree. And I just firmly believe that if we start really moving forward and incorporating, these energetic concepts in our buildings, then, it will help to awaken like a lot of people
mm,
on the planet. And which, I think we sorely, you know, how to put it. Like when I first started learning about this stuff, I was very like keen to, everyone needs to know this. And it's just like, I'm sure, what, and through what you do, it's like people are only ready to be open and listen and hear something if they want to like actually listen to it. It's like, and they determine when they're ready. But if we could start to like sort of invoke that opening up process within, people who might not be so open in themselves at the moment, then I think that, through these spaces, as I mentioned before, they would feel something. And I just really believe that the more of it's created, the more that it would really change the consciousness of humanity
mm,
with time, alongside um, obviously putting in the effort that it takes to really open yourself up. I don't want to sort of say, oh, you walk into a building and you'll be like a changed person, but I believe that you know, because we have to take personal responsibility, obviously, for that for ourselves to some degree, and you know, higher self orchestrates that a lot of the time. But like I think if depending, you know, whether you're open or you're not, I just think
Mm,
that it will give you some ability to like you know, grow internally within like yourself over a time period. And like I said, before, I really believe that like a really attuned building will um, grow with you as you grow. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, just with what you spoke about then, it popped into my head. I've spoken to several people in recent times, and I've seen people talking about it more on, socials about Egypt and how they have these like these mystical experiences when they walk into a pyramid. And it's almost like for them, it's like, well, there's no turning back now.
yeah,
I know too much to not know it. But then there's the other side of the coin where there's like tourists that go and they're just like, wow, yeah, it was all right, but it was quite busy. Like I've heard that as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And they don't have that experience at all, which is kind of really interesting.
mm, yeah,
Like my parents went to Egypt 30 years ago or something, and they were a bit like that. It was
yeah,
nice.
yeah,
And it's kind of really weird that, anyway, that was a bit of an aside, but I guess that was when you were saying that hopefully the buildings and the structures that start to get created and the ones that you're creating will help people to potentially have those energetic mystical experiences that help them to, yeah, evolve. But then it could, but that they need to be ready for it. There
yeah,
needs to be some kind of awareness, consciousness that that is a potential or a possibility.
yeah, yeah,
Although for some people, like mystical things happen when they least expect it, right?
yeah, exactly. No, exactly. If your time is your time, but yeah, and yeah,
Yeah.
I think exactly if a person is ready, they'll be ready, and
Mm.
I think you would experience something without a doubt, but it's just whether you want to accept that with because you know, as soon as you accept that you did have a spiritual experience, then it's basically you can't not do anything about it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
some people just
Damn it.
rather, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. So I love this idea of like over a period of time there being more of this conscious architecture, and that architecture, like you mentioned, the ley lines, they'll actually connect with each other is and increase the energetics, like globally. Let's just talk big picture.
yeah, yeah, no, exactly, yeah, 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 over
Yeah.
time, exactly. Like, and yeah, and I think just even on a more personal level, even just exact like you know, just introducing to you know, humanity to some of these concepts that, you know, I think, you know, I know there's a bit of a battle at the moment, you know, with, you know, archaeology and timelines and, you know, it just might help people expand a little bit more to, you know, being able to, you know, view our history and, you know, what's been before us, you know, in a different light. And, you know, that might help to open them up in a certain way. I just think, you know, this sort of sometimes it takes baby steps and you just have to move forward a little bit at a time. And, you know, I think,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
one,
when
yeah,
yeah, when you're on the cutting edge of something, when you're like pioneering something that's pretty well, it's ancient, but bringing it into the modern world, like, yeah, it's gonna take a hot minute to for people
yeah,
to grasp it, I guess, because it's not the norm.
yeah,
Can you speak a little bit to the architectural renaissance? I guess that's kind of what we've been talking about, but how do you see that coming about? And you mentioned the golden age as well. Like, does that all kind of tie in together?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, I think just, you know, just again about our architecture reflecting our consciousness. I do believe, we're moving forward, and, humanity is, gradually awakening, and, we're all going to have to go through, some kind of spiritual awakening where we do, really start to not only realize, that we have a light body and we have a higher self, but then, taking the next steps to actually embodying that. So I just, yeah, as humanity evolves in that way and we move forward um, spiritually, I just think that we'll basically require this, our architecture to complement that growth within ourselves, and I think it will just naturally progress where the two move forward together, and we just emotionally and spiritually evolve past doing what we're doing now, which is just basically, plundering the earth for its resources to create this, cycle that's just, like you just buy one day and throw out the next. And then it's just like, it's just, I just think we'd seriously need to move past that and, build build for the energy, and like build because it's conducive for our planet and for each other. I just think, we're just, yeah, um, moving in that way naturally anyway. It's just, yeah, it's the next step, I think. Yeah.
I think that some for some people this time in the world is quite scary. And the idea of something new can be quite scary. It's kind of like not something that's going to happen overnight. The new earth and the creation of new earth, or the golden age, is going to be a process, isn't it? I guess time starts to shift a bit when we're talking about this sort of stuff. Like, it's not linear.
Yeah.
But do you feel like this is something that could, in linear terms, happen over hundreds of years? Or is this something that's imminent within a really short period of time? What are your feelings on that?
Well, from what I understand, things are like really speeding up now, and I think, just, we're taught that, to code you have to decode, so it's like kind of one step back, two steps forward. You just can't
Okay, yeah.
expect evolution. That's what, positive and negative is. You can't have growth without, sort of a wave. So it's, we have times that we feel are more positive, and we have times that we feel are more negative. But at the end of the day, it's just basically that is how we move forward. So yeah, I think that is speeding up. And yeah, it's just, it's often difficult, especially with the world as it is at the moment. Sometimes you think we're like where we're heading, but like I said, with the decoding to recode, it's just basically, people need to clear the distortions in, their light body and their DNA, and that's the things that you see that might be uncomfortable. If you're awakened, or you believe and live, largely in higher consciousness, it's like, you see like some of the things that are going on, and you just wonder how. But it's just basically because, people are clearing, and energy systems need to clear, and that's, the once that clearing, and the learning has been achieved, and it just, people will move forward. And I don't think it's hundreds of years. I just think, like, people are awakening now, and I think the people who are not awakening are really struggling, and that's why, we're seeing, seems like the world's gone backwards a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
the last few years, but it's just people just holding on to an old way of being that's just no longer, we won't be able to live like that anymore while we incarnated. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm really curious about, and I may have kind of touched on this earlier, but I'm kind of curious about your own personal experience with transference healing. Um, when you go through this kind of experience, a journey of self-discovery, of evolution, transcendence, it can be quite easy to become, well, this is my experience, to kind of look at, be so outside of it, of all of the mess that we I don't know, separate ourselves or something. Have you had any challenges with that, or have you found that your architecture has really been able to ground you in a purpose that's sort of a bit more, even though it's, let's say, futuristic, a bit more 3D ish? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so I guess that's I, I guess with my work, like personally, just and how like I've felt the growth within myself energetically. I guess you when you're growing spiritually and evolving in that way, and just working with this kind of technology, like light body technology, uh, I guess when you're moving forward, you often think that you've attained something and you like reached a certain level, and you're like, oh, I just, when I look back, how much I've grown, and then you're like, oh, like I think I've really understand something now, and I've like, got it. But then, you look back a year later and you'll be like, I had like no idea what I was, talking about then. And then, it's just, I just think, if you're growing in yourself, you'll always, if you're growing, you always look back at, who you were before. And I think that's part of the magic, because it's like, I think often find, sometimes it is a bit of a struggle to, you know, just interact with the world that's, often quite, physical and three-dimensional. And but I guess just transference, yeah, it's just like set up in a way for me that was just, it just keeps moving you forward. And just like
Yeah.
basically it would be quite easy to go and just sit in a temple and just, humbly live, like in a higher vibration and a higher reality. But Alexis always says that, you have to be living in the world, and that's how you impact, and like the humanity will move forward is through, you actually being in the
Being in it.
world,
Yeah.
influencing other people, through who you are, but then also like embodiment. So it's like, we talked about like light body technology and your higher self, and, this, I believe, and, what I've been taught is that, we're here to learn, through our lower self, and it's only through like this reality and embodying higher states of being is like when you truly embody it in your higher self. So it's, this is kind of, you're basically forced to go against the grain in a way, to because that's when you actually embodied it. Whereas like it's easy to say you believe something, or say you've learned something, but it's not until you tested with it, and you really, you're tested and you're surrounded by lower energetic frequencies, and being able to hold your energy and hold your light in situations. That's when you've you know learned and embodied something. So I guess,
Yeah.
it's just constantly, you don't want to detach from the world because you see all what's wrong with it. It's like you kind of interact with it because you see all the beautiful things that, could occur if,
Yeah.
if we could all just, move forward together. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Lovely. Purpose. Do you really feel, was there any point where you realized, I mean, I know that I've asked you as well about that, like that penny drop where you realized that you could connect your work with the evolution that you've experienced through transference healing. But is there like, was there a point separate to that, where you go, this is what I've got to do, this is my purpose?
Uh,
Or haven't you had that moment?
well, uh, yeah, like Alexis does these, she calls them like trance channelings, where she, it's kind of just basically, how do you explain it? 'Cause it's like, I don't know if you've ever been to a psychic reader, but
Mm,
Alexa used to be a psychic reader, and she's moved on from doing that specifically, but she can sort of depends on what comes up in the channeling, whether she might activate something in your DNA, or she'll tweak something within you.
okay.
Like I had one a year ago, I think, and it's like I just feel like she said something to me like, oh, you'll gain some real clarity around what you want to do. And I think, yeah, it's probably that's why, it started, I sort of had an understanding of what I've been talking about for years. And, I've sort of dabbled in bringing it forward for quite a while, but it wasn't until she said that till I realized that I really wasn't overly clear, like that's like what I really needed to push forward with. Like, so yeah, it's kind of only recently that, I
Okay.
feel like, for me, and like I said about finishing the mystery school, I just feel like it's really all come together and it's culminating, and just, who I need to be now, and just what I really feel like is what I'm meant to be doing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Before we depart, because we're getting close to our hour, I'm not too strict on it, but I am conscious of your time, your precious time. For listeners who aren't architects, how could they bring more energetic awareness and harmony to the spaces that they're already in? And is there anything that you do in your current home that helps you with the energetics of the space that you live in?
Yeah, so I listened to Laverne's podcast, and actually, yeah, crystals are
Oh,
really important.
yes.
So I
Yeah.
like, yeah, have lots of crystals around, and I have like lots of geometry on, the walls, and just have
Okay.
I just like find surrounding myself with, like higher material, I've got all my healing material, my books, all my like, yeah. So like other than that, if you're trying to like retrofit a space, it's probably like a bit, I'm talking about like, structures that are, built from scratch, basically.
Mm,
So it's like there's certain things that you can do, and like, and I mean, I don't want to like also try to portray that like, reaching into, the multidimensional part of yourself, or reaching into dimensionally, is only possible through, the energetic
mm,
structures I'm talking about. It's like I said about them, you growing together. It's like that's largely actually done through, the healing and ascension process within, you as a
yeah.
person. So um it's probably just more like if the opportunity, like, I mean, or if you just didn't feel like your space was great, and you're like, oh, I want to move to, and buy a block of land, or buy something, and I want to build like something that like either like really complements my, consciousness, or how I
Mm,
feel, like I really resonate with like creating something that is, developed using, the principles that I've explained. It's probably more geared towards that. But yeah, I just find
yeah.
like, if just crystals are like really great to have around to, uplift the space, and sort of, yeah, if you're
Yeah.
sort of not
Cool.
in a position to, you know, build something, or yeah.
I think Laverne in that particular episode, she talked about yeah, creating high vibration environments, and plants, crystals, smudging or incense to help clear spaces. She mentioned all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really essential. And in fact, I pulled an angel card before our call, and I got declutter your life, and it said, look around your room, and if you knew what some of the things that were on the other side of this camera, well, let me tell you, there's a little bit of mess happening, and it was all about creating a better energetic space. So Maybe
Yeah. No,
that's,
I agree. And clearing it, like I'm constantly clearing, like, with resins or spray.
mm,
It's just like, I just find, again, that's like part of, what we learn through transference healing, and also then just like, basically living in the world, just like constantly moving energy. It just really, if you feel density around you, clearing it, in that way is like, just almost a daily practice, I would say.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And also, I guess that those practices can help to bring you back to yourself when we can, get caught up in all of the chaos of the 3D. Yeah, can and those kind of ritualistic practices, however simple they are, can really help to keep you grounded and remind you of the what you what you're doing, your higher purpose and
Yeah, because well, that's what I found like when I first sort of started on this journey was like, yeah, you kind of pulled in both directions to start off with. It's like you kind of tell like you relapse, but you sort of you
it's the
rate.
familiar, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, you just sort of might, regress back into some old patterning, and then you don't realize it for a while until you
Mm,
snap out of it, and then you raise your consciousness and your vibration and your surroundings, and then it's often like sort of a bit of a tug of war to begin with. But then like, as I'm finding like with my work, like that was and it still is to some degree a little bit with my work, just like, sort of moving between those two realities,
yeah,
whereas like, financially I have to keep moving forward with more of the beautiful aesthetically based architecture, but it's like eventually I know I will move fully into just basically designing energetically attuned buildings all the time, and then that in itself will allow me just to detach from that old way of working that I was, and you just find your life aligns in
yeah,
that way where it's just your life just becomes your higher reality, and it just as much as sometimes things happen overnight and it's just like a crack of lightning, but then other times you have to build and you have to work at things, and it just great it
yeah,
takes time and energy to move into something. So yeah.
definitely. Well, it's amazing. I loved our conversation. Thank you so much. I've like been fascinated with the posts that you've put on Instagram. Fascinated and inspired. Like it feels very exciting and very positive. So yeah, I've really appreciated your time and letting us into that world and giving us some education around it. Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks, Nadine. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's
No
been great.
worries.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.